In Florence, despite all that human wisdom and forethought could devise to avert it, and the adoption of many precautions for the preservation of health, despite also humble supplications addressed to God and often repeated in both public procession and otherwise by the devout. Towards the beginning of the spring of the said year, the doleful effects of the pestilence began to be horribly apparent by symptoms that showed as if miraculous.
We entertain ourselves with distractions and projects and the accumulation of pleasures and recognitions and technologies, and in the end do not keep us safe from death.
In men and women alike, it first betrayed itself by the emergence of certain tumors in the groin or the armpits, some of which grew as large as a common apple, others as an egg.
Death rule an uninvited guest to reality, on that which we have ourselves constructed, a seeming solemn, yet fragile to its core.
Among whom there were those who thought that to live temperately and avoid all excess would count for much as a preservative against seizures of this kind. Others, the bias of whose minds was in the opposite direction, maintained that to drink freely, frequent places of public resort, take their pleasure with song and revel, sparing to satisfy no appetite and to laugh and mock at no event, was the sovereign remedy for so great an evil.
Time to time, even here in the countryside, on a beautifully crisp and sunny day, we hear the quiet sobbing of those left alive, embarrassed by what they have done. A husband who has stepped out, promising a doctor to stricken wife, but in truth fleeing the city, condemning her and her children to a lonely and frightful death.
Not a few there were who belonged to neither of the two said parties, living with a degree of freedom sufficient to satisfy their appetites, and not as recluses. They therefore walked abroad, carrying in their hands flowers or fragrant herbs or diverse sorts of spices, which they frequently raised to their noses, deeming it an excellent thing thus to comfort the brain with such perfumes, because the air seemed to be everywhere laden and reeking with the stench emitted by the dead and the dying and the odor of drugs.
Even here in the countryside, something hides among the flowers. Sweet smell that slowly grows more disagreeable as the days pass. Where is the doctor? He
Some again the most sound, perhaps in judgment, as they were also the most harsh in temper of all, affirmed that there was no medicine for the disease superior or equal in efficiency to flight, following which prescription a multitude of men and women, negligent of all but themselves, deserted their city, their houses, their estate, their kinfolk, their goods, and went into voluntary exile, or migrated to the country parts, as if God, in visiting men with this pestilence, in requital of their iniquities, would not pursue them with his wrath wherever they might be, but intended the destruction of such alone as remained within the circuit walls of the city, or deeming, perchance, that it was now time for all to flee from it, the last hour had come.